this video, we are talking about verbal abuse. This can be one of the aspects of a system of abuse that is more difficult, especially if it's covert. It's more difficult to recognize. And so I want to share some signs of verbal abuse that can be very, very helpful if you are experiencing it and just really not sure where the lines should be drawn. So, first of all, as believers, as people who claim to follow Jesus Christ, our baseline should be the fruit of the Spirit, right? So that means that we should be speaking to each other as much as possible with love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control, the 9 fruit of the Spirit. And so we can start with kind of just a biblical foundation that verbal abuse is generally stuff that is not that. It is not loving, it is not peaceful, it is not patient. Now, does that mean that very sincere and good Christians don't lose it sometimes? Yes, we do. Do we speak in ways at the end of the day, or grumpy or tired or worn out, that cause pain to people around us? Yes, far too often we do. The question is that a systematic tearing down of other people? And is it something that is an event, or is it an ongoing systemic pattern? That's where we break it apart from being a flawed human being who says things we regret sometimes to, is this a system of abuse? Is this a pattern? Is this an ongoing thing? Is this part of the unwritten rules in your workplace or your church or your family or your marriage? Now, I should clarify here that I have yet to find an abuser, and this is something other advocates say as well. I have yet to find an abuser who does not claim to be the victim. So when you're looking at verbal abuse, you want to sit and you want to assess: is there isolation going on here? Is there deflection going on here? All the bad stuff slides off of me and onto you. Is there manipulation going on here? All the good stuff disappears from you and comes to me. Is there intimidation going on here? Which person is using their power and their influence to isolate, deflect, manipulate, and intimidate the other person? So let's look at 7 possible signs of verbal abuse, particularly in a marriage relationship. These are signs of domestic violence. These are signs of abuse if they are happening, especially if they are combined with other aspects in our Systems of Abuse series and other components all together. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this resonates with me, or I know someone who needs to hear this, please hit share at the bottom. If you have a thought or a comment or something that you want to share, drop a comment in. I see one coming in right now, and they're always the victim. It's true. Someone who is perpetrating abuse, who is refusing to talk about the core of the issues, someone who is always deflecting, they're going to be manipulating circular conversations. They're going to be talking in word salad. They don't want to be pinned down to discuss the actual issue. They'll try to be vague. They will sidestep, deflect. And they'll come at you if you say, hey, I'd like to talk about this. This is an issue. They'll come at you and say, well, first of all, it's not about that. It's about this over here. And then they'll change it to make you the one receiving the blame. And they'll do it while saying that you are wrongfully placing the responsibility on them. It can be very convoluted. It can be very, very confusing and can cause a lot of brain fog and emotional and mental trauma. So let's help clear up some of that fog, and let's go through 6 or 7 direct signs of verbal abuse. 1, someone who details how you should do everything and makes sure you are told if you don't do it to their satisfaction. I'm not talking about 2 people working together and communicating expectations well. I'm talking about when someone's taking their power over you and making you obey them, and there's no wiggle room for you to have your own identity or do anything differently, and they're going to tell you about it. Inversely, someone number two who cuts you off, removes your opportunities to speak, habitually interrupts you, and not in a conversational dialogue kind of way, but cuts you off and won't let you finish, and and acts as if your thoughts and opinions have no value. They just tell you you're wrong, or maybe it's more insidious than that. I know of a case where an abusive pastor in Bible study groups, everyone else was free to talk, but if his wife spoke up, he would sit there and go like this, wrap it up in front of everyone, making it abundantly clear to her she was not allowed to speak. He did not value her perception or her perspective at all, and he was willing to cut her off in front of other people. Another one, number three, someone who puts down your perspective, your opinion, your experience, your knowledge, or your ways of viewing things. Now, this is not just healthy disagreement. Hey, I see it this way, you see it that way. There's a big, huge difference between disagreeing and saying, well, I don't see it that way. I view it this way. This is my experience. This is my background. And saying you and your view are invalid because your view is not the same as mine. It's very different to be like, hey, I'm right about this. You can't change my mind. You're wrong. The end. Than it is to say, this is what I think. What do you think? I disagree with you. You can disagree with me. We view this from different angles. One is healthy. One is toxic. Number four, someone who forbids you from talking to others about issues or forbids you from confiding in trusted mentors when needed. Someone who wants you to stay silent about issues instead of encouraging you to get counseling. Someone who encourages you in a healthy way. A healthy verbal situation is going to be someone who encourages you to get counseling, someone who encourages you to talk out your feelings with people, someone who encourages you to seek support and mentorship and help. If someone is trying to prevent you from doing all of this or refusing to talk to someone to get counseling, that can be an aspect of verbal abuse where they're using that freedom of speech in a way to damage the relationship. Number five, someone who shames you, silences you, insults you, and in other ways communicates that they have a low opinion of your worth. Now, this can be a tricky one. If you have deep insecurities, sometimes our trauma and our deep insecurities can be triggered when someone else doesn't even mean to, just by disagreement. So we have to assess, is this my insecurity talking, or is this a valid way that this other person is treating me? Does this person have innocent motives, and the way that they're expressing something is triggering my insecurities from how I used to be treated, or my fears from the past? Is it a place where I need to heal, or is it a reason that I need to be careful of this person? So these non-tangible forms of abuse are, like I've said before, a lot more complicated, a lot more nuanced, but it's important to ask these questions. Number six, someone who has a pattern of yelling at you, screaming, swearing at you, calling you names, or being just dripping with condescension and sarcasm, where you are the butt of these jokes or the object of the disdain on their part. Number seven, someone who humiliates you by treating you these ways in front of others or encourages other people to laugh at you, to ridicule you, to treat you in harmful ways with verbal words. All of these can be forms of domestic violence, especially when combined with other aspects of systems of abuse. Definitely watch the whole playlist. We've got one more in this series. This is the last one of the 12 forms of the systems of abuse around the systems wheel. Next, we're going to talk about the core that is at the center, the power abuse at the center. And We're also going to be, I added a bonus video into our playlist about the 4 tools that every abuser uses. I'm just going to check on the comments here. Oh, one woman says, my husband would always take smoke breaks whenever it was my turn to talk. That kind of thing is when that's a pattern and it's repeated over and over, that's a way to silence you, to keep from engaging in both people's opinions equally. So definitely drop me a comment, share this if it's been a blessing to you or opened your eyes to things, and send me a message. Check out the description of this video. I have links there for the WILD TraumaMAMAs support group. That is totally free. Just answer all the entry questions. We'd love to have you there if that fits for you. Coaching links, best books to read, recommended reading list, my Systems of Abuse guidebook that is on the Wilderness to Wild website. All of those are available in the description of this video. Please pass it on and check it out on YouTube or share it from YouTube if you're not on Facebook. So, got another question. What if the way someone says something triggers you and you tell them and ask them to say it differently and they refuse and say that's your problem to deal with? Then you may be getting triggered not because of your insecurities, but because of their attitude. I would say that definitely, if you're feeling triggered by someone, go to a counselor, talk it through with someone who can help you see it clearly. If the rest of the pattern of abuse is not present, then ask yourself, how can I frame this properly? Is this abusive, or is this my insecurity talking or my past trauma talking? But if they refuse to participate, a healthy, compassionate person should generally respond with, I'm sorry, let me try to say that a different way. Or, let's work together on this, instead of just shoving it off. So definitely get some outside input and help in that kind of situation where it's kind of unclear and maybe you have triggers from other things as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe.